Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Good morning. This is the unrehearsed Stan coming to you from Gainesville, and today we discuss heads. The LD is rigging. A job in the ivory tower. Time to play hardball with David, all on Light Talk.
And this is David coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers.
But I got a question. How long is Long Beach?
It's really long. They don't call it Long Beach for nothing. Welcome, everyone, to episode 298. Hey, Stan, Steve, do you know what that means? 298?
Season 7 is almost here.
Well, no, season 7's not until like March, but...
Anniversary of season 6? Sixth anniversary of season 1?
You guys can't add 298. 298. That means we're close to...
299?
And even closer to 300. 300 episodes.
Let's divide that by 52.
Well, no, we tried this before, Stan, and you didn't get it right. You were like saying, "No, we're only in our 4th season."
Just look at the website, and it tells you we are wrapping up season 6. We have 6 seasons of interviews.
That's too long.
It's too long.
But like I told you, I'm recommitted to the Light Talk brand because I think we really did build a community.
Right. Yeah, we talked about this last week. We did build a community.
I'm just making believe I'm old and senile.
Oh, you are. That's also. And also, have I ever heard rehearsed, Stan? You would come out here and you're winging it all the time. This is like just like Steve and I. We just wing this show.
I used to get a lot of, how should I say, reprimand for not researching my questions in advance.
It wasn't the question, it was the answer.
I don't know.
It was the answers, that's true.
That's an interesting question. I have no idea. So, make it up. That's all I got to say. Anyway, what are we going to do in 2 weeks when we hit 300? We got to do something.
It's going to be New Year's. I'm going to get drunk.
No, it's not New Year's. It's going to be like Christmas week. It's like the week before New Year's.
We believe in the New Year's week.
Oh, okay. So we're all going to get drunk and eat herring, right? Pickled herring on New Year's.
Ooh,
that's
pickled
disgusting.
Herring. Haven't had that in a long time.
There's a reason. It's horrible.
It's nasty.
With gefilte fish.
That's even nastier. I mean, my mom used to eat that stuff all the time. I'd say, oh my God, you're going to die eating that crap. Anyway, we got to come up with something. So we have the brain trusts in Light Talk Central actually working 24/7, coming up with an idea for a 300th episode.
Like little elves.
Yes, like little elves. They're like trapped in this room. We've got them locked, and they're coming up with it. So we're going to do something special. We just don't know what it is. So we better come up with it fast because we're 2 weeks away.
Maybe the elves are going to surprise us.
Well, we'll find out. Anyway, let's get started with news. We got some news today. Big news.
Steve's
news.
Got big news.
We all have big news. This is really, really big, right? First of all, something, Stan, that you probably should know about, and maybe you don't. But we got a notice from casts today. They're going to only yearly updates. They're no longer going to update during the year. So they're doing every year updates for cast software, for WYSIWYG.
I saw that. I did see
else.
that. I did get the email. And what I liked about what they said in it was that it'll give them the time to make more substantial updates and upgrades to the software. I just wish they would improve the rendering engine.
Okay. You hear that, cast? Get that rendering engine up the par, damn it.
And if you do, you'll get a fez.
That's right. We have some fezzes left. Yes, we'll give them a fez. We also got some information today that LDI 2023 have announced next year's conference dates, and they've shifted it. Believe it or not, it's going to be...
Is it coming back to Orlando?
No, not Orlando. It's not coming back to Orlando. It's going to Las Vegas. It's going to be in Las Vegas.
That's where it always is.
Yes, okay. But I just said they shifted their conference dates, not their conference location.
Oh. So
LDI 2023 will be from November 30th until December 5th.
What? That's crazy.
Why? We're going to miss what? You're going to miss the cannabis convention. That's the problem. That's a lot earlier. And the hall will be open, I think, on December 3rd through the 5th. So the conference starts on November 30th. And the other big news is that they are going to be in the new West Hall. So make sure you take the Tesla tunnel. You can take the Tesla tunnel
over
to
there
the
like
new
we
hall.
did.
That's right. Awesome, right? Those Teslas are going to be running back and forth like crazy.
And did we get any clarification on why they're moving?
Yeah, because it's a nice place. It's a nicer place.
No,
West Hall.
the dates.
Well, apparently there's going to be a Formula One race that's going to be taking place in Las Vegas in November. And the convention center is right in the middle of it. So Ellen and the rest of the LDI team smartly decided to change the dates, which makes a lot of sense because who wants to put up with all that? So let's get on with the show. I have the first question of the day for a change. Sarah from London asks, when negotiating a fee, when do you play hardball?
I know. I have an answer.
Okay, what is it, Stan?
It's simple. I'll just say it quick, and then you could take it over, David. If you're in the catbird seat, and only if you're in the catbird seat. If you're in the catbird seat, play hardball. If you're not in the catbird seat, be a cute little pussycat.
So then the follow-up is, what is the catbird seat?
I had to look that up. I'm glad you asked.
No, but I mean that's a saying, obviously, meaning that if you're in a power position. But how do you get into that power position? What does that mean?
It actually
when you're dealing
means,
with theater.
It means to be in an enviable position, often in terms of having the upper hand or greater advantage in any type of negotiation.
So specifically, how do you get there when you're working in the theater and you're negotiating a fee on a show?
How do you get into the catbird seat?
Yeah,
I think there's a fee. You pay it at the door. It's like buying a ticket. I don't know how you get there. I think I have
the answer.
David.
Yeah, I'll say. First of all, you got to make sure that director really wants you to do the show. You got to make sure that director wants you to do that show and not anyone else. Okay, that's the most powerful catbird's way of getting into the catbird seat, is to have the director behind you. Also, your reputation is very important. We see this all the time. I think Ann told this story at LDI when they asked her to do a musical and in that South Coast Rep or someplace like that. It was down south. And they said, yeah, we want you to do it, but when we move it to Broadway, we're going to get, a Broadway designer to do it. They even told her that up front, and she didn't do the show. There are other reasons that she said she turned it down, but that was pretty rude. I mean, so, if you have experience on Broadway, or if you don't have experience on Broadway and you're doing a commercial show that may move to Broadway, that sort of takes you out of the catbird seat. It's interesting when you're young and you're, just getting started, someone offers you a fee that you think is low. What I used to do is I would do my research and I'd find some other designers who worked there and find out what they made. And there's no secret. I mean, I don't know. When people call me up and say, what did you make to do the show? I would tell them because I know why they're doing it. It's not like they're nosy. They just want to know where to negotiate from. And I'm totally cool with that. I don't think that's a problem at all. Some people may find it. That's okay. That's a choice. So, yeah, I think Stan is absolutely right. But that's how you get into it. Make sure that director really wants you to do the show. But be reasonable. You don't want to really play really super hardball. When I negotiate, and it was like they offered me a fee. It was a little low. And I asked I said, listen, is there any way you could give me $2,000 more? Because, and I tell them why. And then they'd say, oh, sure, because they know the director wants me to do the show. So there you go. I guess if I didn't have the director's support, then it would be different. How about you guys?
Well, I would say you're in a power position if you have a history of being able to deliver the goods.
I think that's true. I did think of one other thing, another expression similar to the catbird seat, which is, I learned this when I started consulting, and somebody said to me, when you negotiate, don't leave any money on the table. And I think what that means is early in your career, sometimes you don't really know your worth. And so it's good to know sort of where you somehow to do, like David is saying, to do some research and find out what other designers have been paid, or how much you think is there, and make sure you don't ask for less than that. Right. So that's one place to be in terms of, and then, and you can usually tell if you throw out a number first what the response is like, if it's like, okay, real fast, you think, oh shoot, I should have asked for more. On the other hand, if you get like a little hesitation, then, oh, I probably asked for too much. Oftentimes what I do when I don't know a client and I put a proposal together, the first pass, I look at the work, I make a proposal, and I always say, let me know if this is going to need any adjusting for you. Because you're sort of saying, yeah, I want the job, but I'm willing to, I'm flexible on the fee. So don't start off too low. And but hardball is sort of like, that's where I think that's where somebody's already said no, and you're saying, no, I need this, and you're going back and forth. But I don't think that goes on too long. And most of my negotiations, the volley is like maybe 1.5 times back and forth, and then
you're playing men's singles tennis, right?
Yeah,
Two
like
volleys,
if you're volleying more than twice, then it's probably not going to work out. And I've had that. I've had people just say point blank,
Nope.
you're way too high, and I'm like, okay, I have another expression. I'll sharpen my pencil, and see what I can do. But then at the same time, I've learned through experience that if I go too low, I end up losing money on the project, and that's not good either.
Unlike architecture, in the theater, you're usually offered a fee. They say, we'll pay you $3,000 to do the show. The basement has already been set, so you don't have to guess. Also, if you're doing a union gig, usually if there's a collective bargaining agreement involved, that those fees are already there. But those are minimum fees. And this is something that the union always tells the membership. Remember, these are minimum fees. Just because it says $10,000 doesn't mean that that's what you have to take. You can ask for $12,000 or $14,000 or $20,000. But that, usually in theater, you have that bottom already. So you work up from there.
Joni in Tulsa says, if I'm an LD, how much do I need to know about rigging? And I thought that's a good question, Joni. So I got 3 short answers, and then we'll try and elaborate. Number 1, you don't need to know nothing. Just say, I don't understand rigging. It's not my thing. I'm just a line designer, and just claim ignorance and walk away from it. That's one option. The second option is I know something about rigging, and maybe the kind of tongue-in-cheek is I know enough to be dangerous, right? Like I sort of know some stuff, but I could get in trouble too, and that could be a dangerous place to be. And then there's like I really know some stuff, which means you got to be good in math, and you got to do the rigging math, and you got to figure out loads, and you got to know dynamic versus static and all that kind of, and the safety issues, and there's a whole bunch of stuff to know. So I don't know exactly what the answer is precisely. I think it probably depends upon what level you're working at. If you've got real riggers on your show, you don't want to step on their toes. They know stuff, and just defer to them. At the same time, if you're working your way up and you got to do something where you're hanging a pipe and you're responsible for putting it in the air or detailing how it's going to be done, then you probably want to learn some stuff and pick up the rigging handbook or take a class at LDI, for example. So again, you could claim ignorance, which might be protective, but at the same time, if there isn't somebody with real skills and some of it's going to fall to you, you probably might want to get some education about it. And what I try to do, because I'm not an expert in rigging, but we do a lot of rigging in my work, but I try and consult people who know more than me, and then people that I really trust, who are very well versed, because we're talking about, people can get seriously hurt with that kind of thing.
Well, I stay away from rigging.
I had a feeling you were in the number 1 category.
I am definitely number 1. I totally stay away from rigging because I am not an expert, and the last thing in the world I want to do is to hurt someone. So I say, look, this is what I want to happen. I think you could do it this way, but I know you have better ideas than I do.
Well, David, when you were doing like summer stock when you were like 24 years old, didn't you have to do some rigging?
I was hanging on a pipe in an ungrounded theater.
Right. So you didn't know anything
Trying
about
to hang
lightning
a
protection
light,
either.
and I was getting electricity flowing through my body through a metal ladder into the ground. No, I didn't have to know anything about rigging.
So you managed to avoid it like the draft.
Yes, I had to avoid. I avoided. I know my limit. I never did pyro. I never did rigging. I never did anything that I wasn't trained to do because I knew my limitations.
That's good. That's good, Dirty Harry.
And it kept me alive, and it kept me out of trouble. So there you go. I got into trouble in other ways than theater. So
what about you, Steve? I want to hear what Steve's got any stories.
I think you have no business messing around with rigging unless you know what you're doing. I think there's a couple kind of riggers out there. There is that person who is standing on the deck making baskets and sending them up and go and a down rigger who goes, I'm a rigger. No, you're putting a basket together and you're clipping it onto a rope. That's what you're doing. And then there's the uprigger who is going, I'm a rigger. And they're the person who is wrapping a coffee bag around a pipe and throwing a shackle on something. So those are people. One is a little bit braver than the other and doesn't have a problem with the heights. But I think if you're going to be a rigger, then I think you have to work in that industry and you have to start out sweeping the shop floor and learn everything there is to learn about rigging. And Stan is right. There is more than just tying a cable onto a rope and pulling it up. I mean, that's a good job too, and that requires skill. But that's not like, I'm old enough to remember tours going out, and they're playing 3,000 and 5,000 seat civic auditoriums that are set up for ice hockey. And people are putting stuff up in the air, and they have no idea what they're doing. And this was, back in the day of steel trusses. They're putting a lot of weight up in the air, wondering if it didn't fall last week, it's not going to fall today. So I think when you go and see some of these shows on Broadway and you see some of these shows in Las Vegas, and you take a moment to look at the real sophistication, the motor control that's happening, how, good heavens, look at Starlight Express. What they are doing, that's a rigger with a capital R, not a rigger with a little r. And it's certainly not a lighting designer who doesn't even have an R with their name. They're just saying, oh, yeah, sure. How hard can it be? Put a sandbag on it. Stand on the arbor next to it and put the weight on it. Let's get 6 people over here to pull the line. I think the industry's grown up a great deal, and I think we've all are old enough to realize that we have done and we have seen a lot of stupid things being done. And man, there is a life at the end of that line. Yeah. And it's how many, lighting designers, how many times have you walked up to a console you weren't quite sure of and go, well, this should work. And then the only thing that happens is the console freezes. Really? Right. You're going to rig? Yeah, this should work.
No, right. Not a good answer for a rigger. But let me just throw a follow-up in there. But our lights hang on rigged things.
And that's why I have a rigger do it for me.
That's right. So that's why I don't hang a light.
We dance with rigging all the time.
I don't know how to make a dimmer. I don't know how to make a console. I don't know how to make a moving light. I let the people, I know how to maybe use the equipment that someone else makes. But, let Caesar be Caesar. Riggers, I have all the respect in the world for those men and women. They're just fantastic in what they do.
So the answer for Jamie is she doesn't need to know. To your advice, my Lumen brothers are saying to Jamie and Tulsa, know nothing, stay ignorant.
No,
and let the pros do it.
No, you should.
What.
No,
not stay ignorant.
Not stay ignorant. I mean, there's certain things we would not do because we know we're not going to hang 10,000 pounds of light on a pipe that's rated for 7,000 pounds. That we're not going to do that. And usually, what happens is that the master electrician will say, "Well, David, you've got 47 lights on this pipe, and you're way over the pipe. I'll take them off. How many do I need to take off?"
Okay, so let me take that example. Should you, as the lighting designer, know what the capacity of the pipe you're hanging or the truss
If that pipe, if that information is on the plot and it says, rated 7,000 pounds, I know how much these lights weigh. I'm not going to hang 47.
You'll do the math.
Yeah. Usually what happens is I'll hang a pipe. It'll have 30 conventionals and 5 movers on it. And the electrician will say, he'll look at the plot and say, hey, Dave, would you mind if we put the movers on one pipe downstage of it so that we could come under weight? And I said, absolutely.
Right.
That's usually what happens. You have to rely on people who are experts.
Okay, well, let's put it in community theater. Let's put it in community theater realm, right? There's a theater that's built. Every community people go in and work there, and you as a designer, I want to put a light over here, and there's no position. So can we just put a pipe in there, and can it be? How much does she need to know to do that safely?
Well, I mean, again, I think if we walk over to that position and look at it, and this young man or young woman is wanting to hang some chain on a piece of conduit and hang a pipe below it, then no, that's a no-go. If they walk over there and it's an 8-inch steel beam, then you don't have to know very much to go, yeah, I bet that beam won't fall. I think where we get it, I saw a drama in true life once, and the theater will go unnamed, but it was a pro theater. We were flying some scenery, and it was just really hard to pull. And they had actually, they had a motor assist on the line. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the riggers weren't there that day, and it was the carpenters doing it. And they understood how to use the motor assist, and they're like, oh, this will make it work. They walked over, hooked it all up, turned on the motor, and it still was a little difficult to pull. And someone said, give it some more power, Charlie. And he gave it some more power, and we're all sitting there, and the scenery is slowly moving. Now, this piece of scenery is a lot of weight, so it's slowly moving, and someone walks into the theater and goes, good God, the batten is bending. So the whole thing was jammed, and the reason it was moving was the batten was bending a little bit. It was a nightmare. Wow. So that was a bunch of people who actually, these weren't stupid men and women, but they were kind of in a realm they didn't know. They had enough knowledge to get themselves in trouble.
That's that middle ground I was talking about.
And everybody looked at that, and they were all like the dog that peed on the carpet. They were all kind of looking down at their feet and kind of going, "Oh man, don't tell mom." But there was no way to get around it. I don't want to be responsible for someone else's life. If I'm doing a concert tour, there's a lighting company, and they either have an in-house rigging or they have a rigging company that comes on board, just like they have a trucking company or an audio company or a pyrotechnics company. And these people, they've got the chops to do what they're doing. And they can come in and say, no, that's a bad way to do it. Or they'll come in and say, look, you budgeted 20 motors on this show. It ain't going to happen. You need 32 motors. And they'll just lay it out and say, this is why it has to be this way. So I think that's important.
Good conversation. You are listening to Light Talk, and today we are sponsored by
12.3, 4-aught, 18.2. Cable gauge got you stumped? Well, brother, you need Juice Hose. Juice Hose, the one cable for all your electrical needs, proudly made in West Virginia by Americans at the TL Electric Company. 1 volt or 100,000 volts, it's all the same to Juice Hose. Juice Hose keeps that electrical current flowing no matter the load. Left the motor control power cable in the shop? Juice Hose. The power cable for truss spot burned out on you? Juice Hose.
Juice Hose.
The driver left the block warmer cable at the truck stop?
Come on, Stan.
Juice Hose.
Juice Hose.
That's right, Juice Hose. There's nothing Juice Hose can't power, at least for a second or two. And now Juice Hose Jr. for all your holiday and Christmas needs. Buy a box full today. The Juice Hose Jr. is perfect for those last-minute electrical needs around the house. Christmas trees.
Juice Hose.
Electrical Juice Hose Jr.
Oh, sorry.
Say it again.
Well, Juice Hose would work too.
No. Say Christmas trees again. So
Christmas trees.
Juice Hose Jr.
Electrical heaters.
Juice Hose Jr.
Grandpa's iron lung.
Juice Hose Jr.
Just use your imagination. That's right. Act now, and we'll throw in a never trip breaker. Your house will burn to the ground before that sucker trips. So this Christmas, when you don't have a clue about what you're doing, insist on the originals. Juice Hose Jr. Holiday Pack, and Never Trip.
Does the same stuff go for rigging? Because you mentioned shoes.
No rigging. No rigging.
And now, back to Light Talk.
Well, the sound of those rabid monkeys prancing about the studios tells us that once again it's time for Let's Talk About. And today's Let's Talk About is all about: when do you decide to drop a graduate student from your program?
This is a serious question. I'm going to say what I say to when I bring a student into the program. You say graduate students. I tell them this, I tell them this early on. When I'm rough on you, I want you to understand I am always, always, always on your side, and I bring you in here, and I'm committed to your success. So I am, and if it ever shifts that my commitment to them is stronger than their commitment to the program, then we have a problem. But my goal is always, always to see them succeed. So if they have to give up on themselves before I will give up on them. Let me say that.
What if they whack you in the face with a hammer?
Then I get the rigger to come in and take care of that.
The answer to the question is very simple. It's when you can't help them anymore, or they don't want to help themselves. And that's the thing. I mean, if they're not going to be working hard in research and in the design process and being team players and all that, then you pretty much have to sit down with the person and say, are you sure? Do you want to be a theater person? Because it doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like you're enjoying yourself. You don't like working with other people, and you've got this enormous ego, and you're not listening to other people's ideas. And all of a sudden, I put myself in like the band leader's position, where if I have a drummer who's like doing whatever the hell they want, no matter, and not supporting the band, then that person's not going to be a good team player. They're not going to be a good bandmate.
So let me ask a question about that. So let's say you had a situation where there's a really good band and one person is not really in the band yet, so to speak. Do you encourage the band to embrace and try and bring that person into the fold?
When I did teach graduate students, I haven't done it in a few years now, I have found that most graduate students want to see other people succeed, and they want to help because they're theater people. But there are some people that shouldn't be in the theater, and they think they're lighting designers or set designers, costume designers, and they shouldn't be. Maybe they should just be a studio artist somewhere because they don't like working with other people. And if you don't like working with other people, you shouldn't be in live entertainment or film or anything else, for God's sake.
To answer your question very directly, when do you decide? So we have a portfolio review process that has metrics. The metrics are there's a grading, there's a scale on all those metrics. There's a place for a number and there's a place for a narrative on each of those items. And at the end of each semester, there's a decision whether to continue a student in the program or there's three choices: continue, probate, or dismiss. And if you get a probate, you're going to get what's called like a letter of counsel that's going to identify the issues that the student has, and they get a semester to kind of turn it around. And sometimes they remarkably do turn it around, or it was a personal issue that passes. You never know what's going on, or it's an adjustment phase they're going through. And sometimes they don't. And if they don't, they get dismissed. And we've done it many times. And we've seen both scenarios. We've seen students turn it around. We've seen a personal issue resolve itself, and then they are back in the saddle, so if you will. And then we've seen where it doesn't happen, and we invite them to be. Now we're a public university, so we cannot actually force them out of the program. But what we can do is cut the funding, both the tuition and the assistantship.
Are you saying they don't have to maintain a GPA to stay in your program?
They do.
Well,
They
then,
absolutely do. Yeah.
then you can cut them anytime you want to. If
Yeah,
they're,
that would
I
be
mean,
that would be academic probation, but they can be on academic probation or artistic probation in our program. And academic probation, they could transfer to another program. Throwing them out of the school is the different story.
I mean, this comes into a conversation that we've had a lot, and a conversation I'm having in a few weeks at USITT. Do you belong in graduate school? Is there any point for you to be in graduate school? And we can talk about that on a level of maybe the 3 years you invest in graduate studies is really beneficial, but maybe the 3 years in graduate school simply slows your career down for 3 years, and you all of a sudden have tens of thousands of dollars of debt. So, graduate school is not for everyone for any number of reasons. One of the things I think we're facing is that, and again, I'm going to say there are no villains here. I don't think that most colleges prepare their students for a graduate courses. I think graduate courses are quite a bit more difficult than undergraduate courses. I think we can start with a graduate course, tends to cover more material in a shorter period of time. I think, if I'm being very cynical about it, then a lot of undergraduate courses, students memorize them, repeat them, and forget them. And I think you can't do that on the graduate level. Also, I think by the time you hit graduate school, a lot of students aren't prepared for the fact that the classroom is as important as the studio is. So maybe what's happening is people who are struggling a little bit, maybe they're struggling because they should have taken some time and worked in the industry first. And it gets back to, do you want to be a theater designer, but what are you basing that off of? Until you've had a few internships and worked and had your 40-hour-a-week job doing it, maybe you don't really know what's engaged, what you have to engage to be a theatrical designer. So maybe you want to take a gap year, at least 1 year, from undergraduate before you hit graduate school, and just kind of test the waters of, is this really what I want to do 52 weeks a year? And you may find the answer is no. It's not what you thought it was going to be. It's going to be something that you have no interest in at all. So, I have found that we have cut students, a number of students, because they have come to the realization that design is not for them. Or maybe it's a mutual benefit. Maybe it's a mutual kind of agreement. Maybe they've decided they should go to school X instead of school Y. That, the grass is greener over there. They're selling a product they want to buy. So I think graduate education is really difficult because it ties up a lot of time. If you're doing an MFA, it's 3 years. Look at these people who want to be theater historians. That's another 7 years to get their PhD. And that's a long time to be in classroom and all of a sudden realize this ain't the career you want. All I'm preaching here is maybe you want to take some time and kind of get your feet wet in a community theater, professional theater, whatever, in a shop. Kind of see what it's going to be like, and then see if you still really want to do it. It doesn't mean you have to give up on entertainment. It might be something, maybe what you find is you would be a better production manager. That's where your passion are. Maybe you would be a better stage manager. Maybe you think you're a lighting designer, but what you really are is a props artisan or a TD. I think you test. It's like the smorgasbord. You test a lot of things. And in college, I think what happens is you get sucked into one department, and you kind of spend 4 years in that one department. You think that's the world, and it's not. There's a lot of other things to do.
And there's something else that I think that's going on. I want to just shift it a moment to the undergraduate world for a minute. Do you know that there is a movement in the country called P through 13, or pre-kindergarten through 13, which is happening in about a dozen states, because the realization is coming that there's a 13th grade. because a lot of students getting out of high school are woefully unprepared for just undergraduate college work. So the extending, and this comes to an even larger cultural phenomenon that's being discussed, which is the extension of adolescence. That the length of adolescence, of that time when you shift from being a child, essentially, to being in that adolescent phase, which is pre-becoming an adult. And I would argue that at the graduate level, when I take a student fresh out of undergrad, and this is speaking very generally, it's not true in all cases, of course, that student is not an adult yet. And a big part of their graduate experience is that transition from adolescence into adulthood. However, when I take a student, as Steve was recommending, who's been out in the world a little bit, year, 2, 3, before they come to grad school, they come in not just having a better sense of what they want out of grad school, which I agree with Steve, they do, and they figured out what they want to be, but they are more adult. And that means they come to it with I'll give an example. I heard a story the other day. There was a banter going on amongst some graduate students, which was basically a grievance fest on some media platform. And another graduate student was invited to join. And this graduate student is more adult, let's say, or has made the transition before they got here from adolescence into adulthood. And after about a day on that platform of listening to the grievances, said, "Take me off this thread, please. I don't want to be here." Because of that person's level of maturity. And so I just got to offer that as sort of a point that, I think to really get something out of graduate school, you need to be at the tail end of adolescence and at least the beginning of adulthood. And we could discuss what that means if you want to.
Well, I find it interesting that, when I went to graduate school back in 1977, that wasn't really an issue because I was prepared.
No, I think I agree with you.
And I think this 13th grade is a bunch of bullshit because it's basically saying, well, we're just incapable of training students, so we're just going to give them more time. How about fixing the system?
Well, you are absolutely correct. And that's exactly what has to happen is the system needs to be corrected. But the point that I think is being made is that what we've been doing wrong is we've been extending adolescence in the name of a whole bunch of things that we would probably disagree with. Right. And I know that for me, when I turned 13 and they made me carry that scroll around the temple, okay, and my father said, okay, and my parents warned me when I was 12. They said, "You're getting away with a lot of stuff right now. But come 13, in our tribe, you're an adult, and then you're responsible for your behavior, and you're not going to be forgiven for stuff that you should have known better." And so we did. You're right, David. Our generation, there was a very hard for us. There was a hard marker. It's like, no, today you're a man. Yesterday you were a kid, and all of a sudden you get treated differently. But we've not been doing that in our system, in our culture. We have adults now who are essentially adolescents, and I can cite examples at the highest levels.
So I have only one source of this. Who knows what the truth is? But I was listening to a discussion on NPR about this, and they seem to be arguing, a number of psychologists, that adolescence and adulthood at one point were around that 16, 17-year-old level. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But now adolescence to adulthood is around 27.
Wow.
And I don't know about the 13th. I don't know about the 13th grade. But it does beg the question, not does everyone have to go to college? And the answer is no. I mean, there are maybe we need to be looking at the people who want to go to a trade school. I mean, Jesus, there are just so many skills that are needed in this society, and lots of good careers that can be built through trade schools. I mean, let's just slow down for a second and think about our own industry. How many brilliant stagehands, shop carpenters, technical people do you know who do not have an MFA? I mean, and we rely on these people every day of the week. Maybe we need to reevaluate what can be gained by going to a community college. Testing the waters. I do it for 2 years. Do I really want to follow this? Or would I be better off in a trade school? So I think there's a lot of things. We have put college at the top of the heap for a long time. And what's happened, in my opinion, is that we have tried to turn college into a trade school, which was what it was never meant to be. It was meant to be this place in which you gain knowledge and you become a better human being and you start exploring the world. Now it's come to my school, and in 4 years you'll have your own company. Come to my school. In 4 years, you'll open your own theater. Come to my school. You'll be an award-winning architect. I think we put unrealistic expectations on our students. We play into the fantasy. If you just come here in 4 years, everything's going to be all right. And if you invest 3 more years in graduate school, it's going to be even better because everyone's going to hire you. Part of this too is, go fill out a job application at the Gap, and you'll see. It's not. Do you have a college education? Do I really need a college education to fold T-shirts in the back of the store? Or do I need a pleasant personality and some interest in merchandising? Do I really need a master's degree at the Gap to fold T-shirts in the back of the store? We're putting unrealistic expectations on people, and it's not going to. I don't think it's going to turn out well in the long run. Well, David has our last question for the day.
Yes. After that discussion, why would you want to ask this question? Rebecca from Tel Aviv, Israel. I think this is our first question from Israel. She asked, what is the best way into academia?
Stay out. Stay out.
What, do you want to be part of the problem, damn it?
Be good at what you do. You don't have to, be the best theater historian you can be the best lighting designer you can be, and have a terminal degree.
You don't need a terminal degree anymore, do you? I don't think so. Because they're doing this whole professor of practice. I don't think you need a terminal degree for that.
There's a dynamic shift there. They've been looking at business schools across the nation. And so many of those men and women do not have terminal degrees. They just happen to be really good businessmen and businesswomen.
I think a lot of people have come to the realization that being an independent contractor is not the most secure pathway in life, especially what happened a couple of years ago when everything shut down. A lot of people left the business, and a lot have not returned. They decided, to do something else. Because a lot of it is because of security. They have families, they need health insurance. There's so many great things that getting a job in academia will afford you. However, it's not the answer, because if you don't love to teach, you're going to be miserable, because as bad as it is out there in the theaters, it can be worse in academia. You talk about politics, you talk about a bunch of BS that goes on, you talk about people being immoral. All that stuff happens in academia as well as in the profession. So if you don't love your time that you're spending teaching your students, and you're not a good teacher, let's say you're not, maybe you love it, but you're just not a good teacher, then you're just going to be miserable. So the first thing I always tell people when they, young professionals, when they say, I say, what's your dream? They say, I want to teach, and I'm going to start applying for jobs when I get my MFA. I say, well, if a school is stupid enough to hire you, they're going to be a crappy school. You're probably not going to learn how to teach there. And it's just not going to be a good situation. That's not what you need to do. You need to become a professional so that you know what to teach, not just what you learned in school. God knows. I was thinking, and I went to a good school. If I got a job right out of school in a university, oh my God, I didn't know shit. Right? There's no way. I was not prepared.
Well, this is where I think schools need to change. What you're saying, David, they need to be more connected to industry, particularly in fields like ours. That there needs to be work linked. It can't just be. It needs to be linked to work, actual work in the field. And some schools do that better. Some schools do it better than others.
Well, that's the whole Gilbert Hemsley thing. I mean, he took his students everywhere. I took my students everywhere. Some people do that in grad programs, but there are very few programs that do that. And Stan is absolutely right.
We're getting a new president. I just finished reading his book. He has a lot of strong ideas about how to change the system. And one of the things he talks about is experiential learning, which for theater, that's what we do. But I think that experience, to Steve's point, needs to not just be on the campus. And doesn't even have to be on the campus. It has to be broader than that. Okay, cool. So I need to go pick up some Thai food.
So let's go ahead and end the show. Let's end the show. Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear, by the way, Stan, can you pick me up some pad thai? I would love some shrimp pad
Pam
thai.
has already ordered. I'm getting green curry. She didn't even let me pick. She's ordered the green curry.
Well,
We're going to a seafood restaurant ourselves.
I just ate some chicken soup, but there you go. You can hear our show on just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website at lighttalk.org and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to the podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
just remember, don't forget, if you decide to litigate us, the Snoot Group with the legal team of Sparko, Burnout, and Chase will defend us until our retirement funds are thoroughly and completely and totally depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers. Coming to you from Long Beach, Gainesville, and the Republic of Texas.
And be sure to join us next week when we talk about more lighting shenanigans and serve you more of our casserole of nonsense.
We are Light Talk, and we are broadcasting Lumen knowledge and humor around the globe.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Adios.
Toodles.